What we're doing is we're using this magazine because it's free, and because you can get it online and you can read it both ways. What I'll do for the next couple minutes, I'm just quickly going to walk through some of the highlights of the articles that are in here, and then we're going to turn you loose at your tables, or if something pops up you want to throw out to a larger group, we can do that as well. But I'll just highlight very quickly some of the things that are going on in this particular issue of the magazine. If you want to follow along, I'll highlight a few things. Maybe you can make a note where you want to talk after we're done doing this quick review. Start out with the editor's letter, and this was interesting to me. How many of you are familiar with M-learning? We've been talking about e-learning. Have you used the term M-learning yet? Aha, I see some heads shaking. Mobile learning. So here's where we're going. M-learning, mobile learning, finally going mainstream, and it's bigger than you might think. Let's see, excess of 20% in 2010 companies, and they're offering mobile learning. So again, this is a growing area we're going to have to pay attention to and learn something about. At the end of his letter, he's talking about what this issue is really getting into, and that's the idea of learning leaders. We have to positively, he says, impact the business performance of our organizations, last paragraph, measuring the progress of their learning initiatives with business-focused metrics. We've talked about that a lot in this group, and I think Susan, the mentoring group, was talking about that whole idea of being able to help us all sit at the table. We often talk about, so that's a little bit about what this one's going to be about. Getting to Elliot Mazzy's article on page 10, talks about a global learning language. I don't know you want to get into talking about this one, but it was interesting thinking about the language. So many of our organizations are global, and he says, he talks about American professionals. He says an overwhelming number of American professionals only speak English. Surprise. They are not overly interested in learning a second or third language. At the bottom of the first column, he asks the question, why so few Americans speaking another language? His view is Americans are self-centered and that we assume English is the international language of business, which means the rest of the world should be ready to learn it. That's kind of scathing, I guess.
Well, and I think it's sort of the experience. My husband works internationally, travels globally, and it does seem to be sort of the predominant ideology is that
I've always talked about that. We've always talked about English is the business language, and when I was flying with the Air Force, all the tower, everybody all over the world, English was the language of aviation. So it's, we're used to that, but it's changing. Mm-hmm. It's changing. Now the good news is, he says at the bottom of the second column, there is research underway at the University of Maryland on new cognitive science approaches to teach foreign languages to adults more rapidly and easily.
Yay.
So, who knows?
C'est bon.
Yeah, right. Very good. Okay, the next one, context is king, page 12. Talking about e-learning and all the new technologies. First column, second paragraph. Although 76% of learning organizations aspire to include social media in their learning offerings, only 20 to 30% succeed. Little informal learning is in practice, even things as simple and dated as discussion boards. So as you're looking at blended approaches, and there's a lot of talk about social learning, different ways to do that, but it's not gaining ground yet. And he goes on in the second column at the bottom, when he talks about context. I found this pretty interesting. Bless you. He says many companies of practice and Web 2.0 tools struggle to gain traction because they are seen as something extra to do, not a contextual environment that helps the learner solve a business problem or perform better. So Robin, what you were talking about is, this is something else I got to do, rather than this is part of what I'm trying to do, and it's a tool that I can use to do that. So he's talking context. And of course he talks about social media outside of work and how we use this in many ways, keep in touch with friends and everything. It says the tool enhances the context in which it is used. We haven't positioned these tools as something of value based on the need being served. When a voluntary option is seen as taking time away from what's more important and helpful, it simply won't be consumed. So that's going to be our challenge as professionals in this line of work, is how do we get these tools to fit into what people are doing to solve problems, not something you have to do in order to fill a square to get promoted or something like that, right, Robin? Okay, and then of course the next one, Ken Blanchard. This is a really good one too. His title is Helping People Grow, and let's see, he's saying that we should be looking at, in our training, of doing things that help people grow, which is, I think we all kind of agree with. And he presents, 4 different ways where gaining knowledge can be a way of helping people grow. And he's talking about knowledge, self-knowledge is number 1, knowledge of others, number 2, knowledge of our industry, number 3. And he has a point there, good question to consider. How much do you really know about the industry you're in? If the answer is not an unqualified, just about everything, and he gives you some suggestions. So again, sitting at the table, you'll see a theme running through here too. That it's not just enough, to know how your programs or whatever fit in, but do you really know the industry? Do you really know what profession you're in, or the business that you're in? Not the profession, but the business that you're in. And then the last one, knowledge about leadership, which I think we're all talking about. Okay, let's see. Let's skip the next one. The special report, page 18, you might want to take a look at that one, talking about back to class. First column, third paragraph. Instead of replacing the classroom, technology is most often used to enhance the benefits found in a live learning environment. So there again, the whole blending thing. So we're not out of the classroom yet. What we're looking for is new ways to blend, is to bring these technologies together so that it works well. A couple examples.
That was one of the things that jumped out at me when I was reading this.
Yeah.
Because if you look at that figure 1, self-paced e-learning.
Yeah.
Based on all the money that you hear and the buzz, what percentage would you have guessed that made up of learning?
Yeah.
And they're talking about 17%.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
It's just like,
yeah.
Training Magazine does that yearly thing of how much people are spending, and you get the impression that they're just pumping money into this. Yeah. And it's almost like, well, we better do some of that because we have to be able to say we do some of that.
And some of it, bandwagon approach, or just, you remember we had articles in this before talking about, we like it because it's new and exciting, and we're trying to figure out how to make it fit what we're doing, as opposed to what everybody's talking about now is making the tool fit what we're doing. And so the classroom is not dead.
Yeah, that was fascinating because I'm reading a book by Ruth Colvin Clark called E-Learning and the Science of Instruction. And she's going through and contrasting buzz versus actual academic studies of how people learn. And each chapter has so here's the thing, somebody wants to do some e-learning and somebody wants to find out what the learners want. What do you want to do? Well, maybe we should find out what the learners want.
Yeah.
I highly recommend the book.
Good. So. Why don't you post that on our LinkedIn group once we get the
new
one going?
Yeah, it's on my page of what I'm reading right now in LinkedIn. The chapter
group would be a good place to post that. That'd be great. Thanks, Richard. Yeah. A couple sort of case studies here you might want to take a look at that were interesting in the special report. The next page, page 20. This I found interesting. At Whirlpool, hold managers accountable by improving their coaching abilities and the tools they need to promote employees' use of these skills. How often have we talked about holding managers accountable? It's nice to see that. And then the next column at GE. And they can do a lot of the theory through e-learning and social media, but we find in this global world there is such a need for people to gather together to have a chance to meet leaders in person. One of our key components is leaders in the classroom.
That human connection.
Yes, that human connection. We still really need that. So how you can put these different tools together to come up with the right approach, and still keeping it human. The profile this year, this month, Farmers Insurance topic was ensuring relevance. The only thing I really took out of that on page 24, you might think about this, where our profession is heading. Thompson said she and her team are paid on business results, the bottom of the first column. Let's see. We're paid on, quote, does the learning solution deliver the desired business outcomes? We've worked with our business unit in target, on target. So to target. So what you're saying is, if you're going to sit at that table, is your solution, hitting the business target, and they get paid on that. That's interesting. The next one, building a global leadership pipeline. I don't think many of our organizations are global, but there's some pretty interesting ideas there, and what they found people are needing. And there's the figure 1 is a good one to look at there. Talks about some of the competencies you might want to take a look at. And page 30, the real education gap. Let's see, 82% of American schools fail to teach curricula that imbue students with the skills leadership demands. They're talking about going beyond the 3 R's into the 4 C's: critical thinking, effective communication, collaboration and team building, creativity and innovation. And effective communication is paramount. So this one is interesting too. It's sort of saying, what do we do, where we're getting people coming to us that don't have some of that. So now we have to pick it up. And I've been reading Steve Jobs' biography lately, and I found it interesting on page 33, the first column, Nakia, talking about leadership and competencies and skills we need. I didn't know this. Nakia had a touch-screen cell phone 3 to 4 years before Apple, but it didn't get out of development. And the reason it didn't get out of development was because Nakia's culture did not support the development of new ideas and the continuous learning that would encourage its engineers to learn about the new kind of cell phones.
Wow.
So this whole idea of what are these skills that we really need as leaders to be innovative and help our organizations grow. The next one is learning to right the wrongs. That's about ethics. If your organization is working on programs around ethics, some good suggestions and ideas in that article. And then page 38, begin with the business in mind. This is what we've been talking about a lot. Bottom of the first column, defining the company's competitive position. It's hard to earn a seat at the table when someone can't even find it. I thought that was well put. So if you're thinking about that, say you should be able to effectively describe the company's competitive position in terms of, and they give you a whole list in the second column, industry and key features, range of products and services, customers, external partners, competitive strategy. So again, it's this idea of not just knowing how to connect what you're doing to a target or a problem, but do you really know the business? Do you know the organization that you're a part of? So some good pointers on there. On page 41 at the bottom. First of all, Winston Churchill quote at the top there. However beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. And then at the bottom, although many learning professionals believe a financial ROI is the key to being perceived as valuable, most key decision makers are more interested in how learning initiatives support organizational goals measured in financial and non-financial terms. So helping the leadership really get where they want to go. And I think that's all I'm going to comment on there. So my suggestion, again, is at your tables, make sure every table has a magazine. I think we might need one over here. And pick a topic or any other topic if you want. Give you about 25-30 minutes to talk about it a little bit, and then we'll see what you came up with.